How are you?
On Monday, the 10th of July, 2023. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Architectural Site Control Commission meeting this evening. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Breen?
Here.
Vice Chair Sill?
Here.
Chair Wilson?
Yeah.
And the other commissioners are not expected to join us. Commissioner Flynn will be back for the next meeting.
Right. All right. In that case, I'll move on to oral communications where persons wishing to address the Architectural and Site Control Commission on any subject not on our agenda may do so now. Please note, however, that the Architectural and Site Control Commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items which are not on our agenda. Would you like to come up to the podium, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, that mic's not on if you don't mind going to that table. Thank you.
Caroline Vertonghen, 100 Palmer Lane. It's an outstanding question that was raised. It has something to do with this project, but in oral communication, I would like to address a general question regarding the CEQA exemption. It was addressed during the proposals in December 21, asking if which COP do you use to make it CEQA exempt? And I addressed it several times with the Planning Commission. Then recently we hired a CEQA attorney, and so I was hoping that we have clarification on that. As you know, for instance, with this project, the master plan was in 2005. The first amended COP was in 16. So the master plan had a maximum allowable students of 250. Then we had an amended, brought it to 350. And that seemed to not have been expressed at the latest CUP amendment in 21. So far, we don't have a real answer. How many times can you amend a COP, and when you try to establish if a project is exempt from CEQA, which COP are you supposed to consider to come up with the number? And that is a question I was hoping that the town council liaison was attending. I don't know if she's attending. Is it Council Member Haskell at this moment? Because she was involved.
There are no council members in attendance right now.
But who is the liaison for this commission?
It rotates. I would have to check.
Okay.
Coming up, but I don't know.
So it's an ongoing question that still has not been resolved. And
have you asked the planning commission?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
So that's one of the concerns. I don't know how long I can stay, but I will definitely go on to Zoom. So when I mentioned Gary Haining, I saw him today. Both the Bike, Pedestrian, and Traffic Safety Committee nor the Trails Committee have been informed that this project was coming again in front of the ASCC, and there's outstanding issues that have not been resolved. So we will bring it up as the project gets presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Right, do we have any other public comment? In the audience, we have 5 participants, and on Zoom we have.
On Zoom, we have 5, and I do not see any hands up on Zoom.
Right. In that case, I will close the oral communications and move on to new business. The new business this evening is a conceptual design review of an application for a new gym and fitness building, an addition remodel to the existing locker room, Gambetta Gym, an addition remodel to an existing chapel, and to discuss plans for a forthcoming conditional use permit amendment. And we have Jake for our staff presentation.
Great, thank you, Chair. And hello, commissioners. My name is Jake Garcia. I'm a consulting planner for the town, and the item before you tonight is a request for a preliminary conceptual design review for a new gym, fitness center building, and addition remodel to an existing locker room, an addition remodel to an existing chapel, and other projects for a forthcoming conditional use permit amendment at the Woodside Priory School at 302 Portola Road. I would also like to state for the record that the ASCC did conduct a site visit today at the Woodside Priory. And moving on to the vicinity map, the Woodside Priory is a private college preparatory school for grades 6 through 12. The campus is approximately 50 acres in size and is designated for institution land uses in the general plan and is in the town's residential estate zoning district. It is a conditional use governed by a conditional use permit, and it was first approved in 1968 and most recently amended in 2021. An overall master plan map of the campus visually implements the development standards as detailed in the CUP language. The approved map is shown here on your screen. And the Woodside Priory, the Priory is requesting amendments to the CUP and overall master plan map, and has requested that the ASCC and Planning Commission first provide a preliminary design review of the forthcoming development proposals to provide preliminary feedback and guidance to the applicant team as they proceed with projects, designs, and requests to the Planning Commission to make an amendment to the existing CUP. In order for the proposed development to move forward, a CUP amendment would need to be approved as the proposed projects are anticipated to exceed the maximum allowed floor area as allowed by the existing CUP. After any formal CUP amendment approval, each of these projects would be reviewed once more by the ASCC for final architectural review and approval. The provided plans and associated information that you are reviewing today are conceptual at this time, and when final proposed plans are available, town staff will conduct a complete review for consistency with the town's municipal code, the design guidelines, the general plan, and the approved governing CUP. Prior to tonight's meeting, the ASCC provided a conceptual design review of the forthcoming projects in February of 2023, after which the Planning Commission also provided a preliminary review of the project in May of 2023. In between the first ASCC meeting and the first Planning Commission meeting, the applicant team made substantial changes to the newly proposed gym and fitness center buildings, both their location and their design. The applicant team agreed to request another conceptual design review by the ASCC for the revised conceptual plans. On your screen is the proposed conceptual overall master plan, which identifies the forthcoming projects. Previous plans included a new gym and separate fitness center in the northwest corner near the existing pool. These two buildings have since been revised and relocated to be one building located adjacent to the existing track and soccer field. It is located in place of an existing softball field and parking area. The new building location is circled here in blue. No changes have been made to the proposed locker room renovation and addition, which is circled in red, nor changes have been made to chapel renovation and addition, circled in yellow. No changes have been made to the monastery renovation, circled in green, and no changes have been made to the new academic offices, circled in purple. And finally, no changes have been made to the middle school playground, circled in lighter blue. The applicant team has conceptual architectural drawings for projects 1 through 3 listed on the screen, and the following slides will go through these conceptual plans in more detail. Conceptual plans for projects 4 through 8 are not yet available, but are included here for reference, as they are identified as projects to be included in the CUP amendment and are to be further detailed at a later date. So jumping into the gym fitness center building, circled here in blue, the building is proposed to be 2 stories and a total of 24,095 square feet. It includes a sports court, stadium seating open to the ceiling, and separate locker rooms to accommodate different genders, team rooms, flex spaces, gym equipment, and athletic offices. There's also a small storage building proposed adjacent to the new building. Here's the south elevation, which faces outward from the campus towards the track and field and Portola Road. And here's the west elevation, which looks to the parking lot and Priory School Drive. Here's the east elevation, which also looks to the track and field and further out Gambetta Lane. And here are the elevations for the north, or here's the north elevation, which would open up inward to the campus, facing upslope. And earlier today, the applicant team provided a rendering of the new gym and fitness center to show its perspective from Portola Road. The building is proposed to have a Class A bronze-colored metal standing seam roof. Hardy Artisan shiplap vertical siding proposed to be in a top Olympic stain color, Solar Brand 70 Atlantic windows, and the proposed fascia, rain gutters, and trellis areas are proposed to be in a bronze color. All exterior materials will be non-combustible, and a colors material board has not yet been provided. However, all colors must comply with the town's light reflectivity value requirements. And I'll jump into the conceptual plans for the locker room addition and the chapel addition. These plans have been reviewed in the past by the ASCC. There are no changes made to these, but for the benefit of the public and the newly appointed ASCC members, we'll go ahead and go through them in the same detail that we did initially. So this here is the locker room addition remodel. It's circled in red. The existing gym locker rooms are proposed to be renovated and include a 1,306 square foot addition. The areas of addition will allow for a new team room on the west end of the building and infill smaller areas of the building so that it is more uniform in shape. On your screen in red is areas of addition, and the corresponding areas there where there are additions proposed to be excuse me. The building is proposed to have non-combustible exterior materials, including cementitious glued panels to match the existing materials, a veneer neolith rain screen, and 2 new bronze anodized skylights on the south-facing roof of the building. The roof materials have not yet been specified, and no exterior colors have been specified. Colors must comply with the town's light reflectivity requirements. And finally, we'll talk about the proposed chapel renovation and addition. The existing chapel is proposed to be renovated and expanded with a 738 square foot addition to widen the seating area to allow more students to be seated in the building at any one time. And a 754 square foot office building is proposed adjacent to the chapel for ministry offices. The 2 buildings are proposed to have non-combustible materials, including porcelain tile siding, metal-clad windows, and a Class A metal standing seam roof. No exterior colors have been specified, and colors must comply with the town's light reflectivity requirements as well. A notice was sent to all property owners within 1,000 square feet of the project site on February 17th for the first ASCC meeting. And I'm realizing the slide has not been updated to include public noticing for the next 2 meetings. But the preliminary planning commission meeting included a public notice that went out on April 21st. And for tonight's meeting, there was a notice that was sent out on June 30th. All 3 of these public notices that went out were sent to 1,000 foot radius of the project site, and no public comment expressing support, or excuse me, no public comment has been received prior to today's ASCC meeting. The ASCC may wish to consider the forthcoming projects with respect to general design and location of buildings, as well as key design principles as identified and outlined within the staff report. And this is the end of staff's presentation. Both staff and the applicant team are available for any questions by the ASCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Breen? Commissioner Phil?
No questions.
I have no questions of Jake either. So we will move on to the applicant's presentation.
Thank you. I'm Carter Ward, architect for the project. Patrick Ruff, headmaster of the school. Thank you for the site visit today. It was really great to see that. Thank you for indulging our opportunity to shift sites with the gym and fitness building. As I described during today's meeting, the nexus was really about looking at some of the problems that the design that we shared in February had, and the opportunities that potentially we would have with some shift in the design. This opportunity gives us an ability to do iconic and transformative building on an existing flat site that doesn't require a significant grading like the other one does. Improves the opportunity for on-site circulation and saves trees. We look forward to your comments. As we talked about during the site meeting, there's one other project that the Planning Commission saw as pretty essential, and I think the Priory does too, which is the crossover circulation to bypass the faculty housing portion of the campus with the Gambetta Lane entrance, which I know isn't part of our presentation tonight, but is an important part of what is coming with the Priory campus.
Yeah, we're grateful to work with you. We appreciate all your time and energy and your wisdom, and excited as we think about how Priory can continue to support our learning needs and goals and mission and vision, but then also the town and how it really supports and fits in, to this beautiful place that we get to call home. So grateful for that. And I think Carter summed it up well. We think this is a site that's more ideal for everyone, and really, again, I think fits the needs that we really are trying to accommodate better and more efficiently and more effectively.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't have a question.
I do. I just, do you guys have a 10, 20-year vision master plan for what you want to do in the future? I'm just worried that we see building by building rather, and then we're going to put that road in. And so what are the implications to that? What are the implications to the old White House? So, we opened everything up, and I'm just wondering what else is going to happen. And that's why I asked about the pool. And if you don't know, that's cool. But I think it would be really important to share the vision of the future with the town and the Planning Commission.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we've been so focused in on finishing this current master plan, and I think as that really comes to fruition, really this last piece is kind of the last part of that plan. I think it really behooves us to think a little bit about what that vision will look like. We were thrilled. Laura challenged us a little bit on that in a good way that helped us begin to think about what our campus and needs could and would look like. So we don't have anything formal. I do think the projects that Jake articulated would certainly be the bones of that. And we also know that our campus, we like our size, we like the number of students that we have. That helps us maintain our own sense of identity. We do not want to be a big school. So much of what Priory is predicated on relationships. And that's not just with people, but that's also with the environment and nature, and our world. The Benedictines have certainly been part of that, for 15 centuries. So we're not looking to grow. We're not looking to overdevelop, but we are looking to try and continue to accommodate, the 425 students that we have, on our campus. And as we've seen, those needs have really shifted a lot, right? When we think about kind of equity and inclusion and what that means and how important that is for our students. We think about how they learn and looking at different ways of learning and trying to create the facilities that help support that. So there's been some pretty major shifts in education. So it's really about trying to anticipate or plan or develop the facilities that are flexible enough to try and accommodate that. So, but it's a great question. All to say, we don't have a lot of clarity about a vision, but we will.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have any questions, so we open to public comment for this item.
So folks on Zoom, if you want to make a public comment, please raise your hand on Zoom. We have 5 people. I do not see any hands up at this time.
Right. We have one hand up in the audience. Microphone.
Oh, we're not. I mean, we can hear you, right?
It's recording.
Yeah, got it.
Yes.
It's amazing.
So thank you. My name is Caroline Vertonghen again. I think you asked a very great question. What is the ultimate future of Woodside Priory? I'm very concerned, and I hope that you will work with our committees. We have, the Planning Commission has already approved another project at the end of Georgia Lane. That is the crosswalk from Ormondale to Corte Madera to Woodside Priory. It's our main intersection. We had a traffic study done in 2017. It was approved in 2019 and we're nowhere. it's very demoralizing at one point because both the trail committee and ourselves, bicycle committee, we had hoped and we were promised that the designs were going to be ready June, the end of June. And haven't seen anything and school will start. So are you planning to do construction and use Saucil Trail? That's the end of the baseball field to access that upper level construction? No. Not at all. Okay. So there are issues with that trail, but you're not going to use it. I like the confirmation. Thank you. But we need to work on the other projects.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we have Gary Hanning with his hand up on Zoom.
Right, go ahead, Gary, please.
Here's Gary.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm Gary Hanning. I'm the Vice Chair of the Trails and Paths Committee. Good evening, everyone. I don't really have any substantial comments to offer on this project because I just found out about it from Caroline at the market today. I can take partial blame for that because I haven't been following the Planning Commission or the ASCC's calendar of late, but I can just say that in the past, we have reviewed every conditional use permit that's come before the town. So we kind of assumed that, you know, if there was one coming before the town, it would find its way in front of the Trails and Paths Committee so we can take a look at any impact proposed development would have on the trail system. As you know, the Priory is blessed with some wonderful trails bordering its campus. I wanted to hear Jake's presentation. Thank you, Jake, for that great presentation. And just listening to that, I don't see any problems, but without a thorough review, it's hard for me to give any substantial feedback to the ASCC on this project. I will take a deeper look, but I would maybe ask Laura, and Laura, we have an email into you about this, that we start reviewing conditional use permits again. I would just say this, the Priory has always been a wonderful neighbor. When it comes to trails, we have no reason to believe that their development would impact the trail system. That said, we're here to help. And oftentimes when we look at conditional use permits, we find ways to make things better for both the trail users and the applicant. So with that said, that's really all I can offer at this point, but I would like to reserve future comment on the project once I have a chance to look at the plans a little deeper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanning.
Through the chair, can I speak to that while Gary's still on the line? Yep. Thank you, Gary. That's a great point. I just wanted to explain to everybody that this is a very early review in the process. There's not complete plans yet. So this is even before a preliminary review, which we can call a conceptual review. And so this is just an opportunity for ASCC and Planning Commission to give very preliminary feedback so the applicant can better develop their proposal. So once we have complete plans from the applicant, then they'll be routed out to Trails and to Conservation Committee. And that will be an opportunity to get more feedback. So does that help clarify the process, Gary?
Absolutely, Laura. Thank you. That does help, and that sets our expectation appropriately, I think. And we'll be looking out for the plans when they're ready. Thank you.
Great. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Do we have any other public comments?
There are no other hands up.
All right, and there are no hands up in the audience. So I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Yeah. Who would like to go first? Hello.
Okay. It was great being on site today. I understand where you're going. I support the direction in which you're headed. I see that this is sort of the only flat place left. And I love it that you want it to be visionary and iconic. And I get that. I mean, I think the design of the building is beautiful. I think the materials are good. It is a bowl. The Priory sits in a bowl. So one of my fears is acoustics? You know, where are air conditioning units? What are the implications when the doors are open? I love the vision of you wanting to have an indoor-outdoor experience, you know, even supporting outdoor things, using the gym. So I think that's a really cool concept. I was one of the people who really enjoyed opening up the campus when we did the track. I thought it was, you know, it was wonderful looking through there. But I think this building being so iconic is that I think we're going to need to plant along Portola Road. And I think what we want to do is look at the building through groves of trees. So I think there needs to be a lot of planting because there isn't the opportunity to plant in front of the building on the south elevation. So I unfortunately think we need to kind of close it up again in order to protect that building, because that building is important. And I think it's too big, you know, for the experience of the Portola Road scenic corridor. So I just think if we hunker it down, we massage it a bit, I think we could make it work. The road. Yeah, so we just came to the road at the very end of this thing. That's one of the few remaining meadows in our town. You know, we have groves of trees everywhere. We have very few meadows left. So, but I think it's important that you have that road, but I think it needs to come in very low. Just as soon as you turn into Gambetta, you would take a left and go down. And I don't want to see a bisection of that meadow with a road. And I probably think that that road needs to be planted with trees. So it becomes a tree-lined entrance. Notes. You know, historically, I think there hasn't been enough parking on site. You know, on nights where there are big activities, you know, the parking goes all the way around that front field that has the track around it. I think over time, and you know, historically, how I've been involved with the town, I don't think we ever wanted to see that happen. So I want to hear more about the parking studies. You know, when you have a game and there are people, there's another team coming and their parents are coming, does 20 car parking spaces cut it? So 20 extra. So I want to make sure that that's studied and understood. Other than that, I mean, I think it's pretty. I think it's iconic. You know, I get that that's where you're trying to go. But I mean, just right now, those are my reservations and the things that I think about. And there really is an acoustical situation, you know, into the Brookside neighborhood from the campus. And that needs to be studied and understood. We talked a little bit about sustainability today. I mean, I think an iconic visionary building is also hugely sustainable. So I'd like to see more come in through that. I mean, I sure hope you're doing solar, you know, and solar capture and et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, I want to hear what my fellow commissioners say, and I really hope we can get this thing going for you.
Right, thank you, Commissioner Breen. Commissioner Sill.
Okay. I think that, I mean, I really liked the plan that you had originally, the one that we saw back in February. And at the time, I thought that the location of the gym was really cited well. Now I understand that, you know, with practical considerations, it didn't really work out that great. And so I think that you've come up with a great alternative. I think that the location you picked is really a super spot. I do have, you know, I think we have to be careful with it. Like Anna said, I think it is going to take some screening. I'm not sure I feel like it's going to take as many trees as you say. I'm thinking more just a couple of trees along the road. And I actually think you can put a few trees along the building so that you just soften it some. I mean, it's certainly still going to be visible, and I think that's fine. It should be visible. It's going to be a beautiful building. But I do think that we don't want it to overwhelm people with just this giant building. I do think that we're going to be careful with light coming out of the building. I mean, you talked about having shades on the second story windows. I'm worried also that there's just a lot of glass on the doors facing Portola Road. So, and I think, you know, all winter, there'll be lights on until 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or something. There'll be a lot of light coming out of that building. So I do think we have to think about managing light. I think managing sound is also a big deal. Dana talked about that, but I was particularly concerned about the light. Let's see. I think it is interesting that it's going to clearly be the largest building on campus. It's going to be a different sort of feel. It is going to change the way the campus feel in the sense that right now, as you drive by, you get this sense of athletic fields, and now you're going to get the sense more of a big building. But I do think that the design of the building is great. I love the materials. I really like the design quite a bit. So I think it's just going to be important to be sensitive to that, and that's why I think a few trees in good spots are going to be important, just to soften that a little bit so that it's not overwhelming. You know, even though it's a relatively tall building, I can't see the height being a problem at all. I think just how it sits down a little bit from the road, I don't think there's any issues at all with the height of the building. Materials I think are great. I guess I don't share the same concerns about the parking that Dana had. You know, actually, there's no more parking. You know, the parking is there's going to be 20 slots that move, but there's no more parking now in the future than there is now. And I guess that I don't, you know, having driven by there a few times, many times, I guess on rare occasions there is some shortage of parking, but it seems rare enough to me that I wouldn't want to see more of the campus paved over. I really like the overall plan. I mean, it seems to me that you're touching a lot of different, very important areas on the campus, and it feels to me like it's really setting you up well for the next couple decades. I mean, there may be more things that have to happen, and it'd be great to have, you know, a master plan. But to me, this is a really good vision of at least the next, you know, 5 or 10 years while you work on it, and you're touching a bunch of really important things in terms of kind of the monastery, the chapel, the locker rooms, the dorms, you know. So it's going to be not like a new campus, but certainly refreshed. And I think that what you've chosen to work on makes a great, you know, is really a good idea. Building itself, the gymnasium itself, the new gymnasium, you know, I think it's a great design. I really like kind of the stucco features. I think that's going to help a lot in terms of not making the building overwhelming, but sort of drawing people in. And then, you know, we've already talked about all of the other different additions and the modifications, and I was definitely in favor of all those before. So, you know, to me, I think that just things to really think about as we go forward is the sound issues, light spill, and then just whatever path lighting that we need that's out near the track, just as minimum as possible for safe travels for folks. Native landscaping wherever we can, because it's just going to be very visible. So I think we just have to be particularly sensitive to the impact that we're having. But I really think it's a great proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Sill.
How you feel about the road? You know, I have not spent time up in that area, so I don't, the whole meadow thing, I can't really comment on. In terms of traffic flow, it makes complete sense to me. Totally. So I'm really in favor of the road, just the location.
Let's put that on our radar as we drive by. Right. I think it's really important that it stay low.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, I tend to agree with both my fellow commissioners on this, on most of the plan. But I have to say that the massing of the building does make me uncomfortable. I'm not sure what the regulation height is for a gym. I think it's 25 feet and we're going to 34. And I think the whole aspect as you're driving along Portola Road and you see the running track, but then you go up and you've got the trees and then the other buildings are hidden behind the trees. There now is going to be a very big building next to the track. And I think we are going to get a lot of public reaction to a big building with that sort of mass. And if we don't say something about trying to reduce the mass and the bulk of it, that we will be in trouble. I agree that we will probably need some planting along the road. I agree that some planting in front of the building will help. But even though I know that the running track is 17 feet below the level of the road, that Portola Road, your eye still goes down and then up. And if this new building is as big as proposed, it is going to be a big issue with, I think, some of the residents, because we're so used to not seeing anything there, and then suddenly something 24,000 square foot appears. I am concerned also about the lantern effect, and obviously the darks. I mean, when we go into winter, as Commissioner Sill pointed out, doors open, lights on all afternoon, because it will be, again, a light that our eye is drawn to because it's down in the dip and surrounded by trees. I agree with all of the revisions, the minor works, as we discussed in our earlier meeting. And I like Diana's, Commissioner Broom's idea about not cutting through the meadow and then having that road come straight round. For all theoretical purposes, I think the building works really well. I just don't want the residents of the town to think that we neglected to say, please try and make it less massive. So that's where my concerns are coming in. But other than that, I do like the materials. I like the standing seam roof. I like the hard, I like all of that. It's just the massing that is concerning me, and the light spill. So, but it's a conceptual design, and obviously it's coming back twice.
Right.
So, either height-wise or in some way to make it not look quite so huge. Because it will be the biggest building that we've got. No, Madeira. Well, but that isn't on the scenic corridor. No, it's on the outbound scenic corridor. You have to be driving through the ranch to see that, or up that time. Yes. A big building. Yeah. So obviously you're free to ignore me and go with my fellow commissioners, but those are my sentiments on it. And just get around, should we talk about it? I mean,
right? Yeah, I guess I'm sort of surprised that you're so concerned about the massing. It seems to me that it's the way it's going to be sitting, and it's kind of a long, low slung building, relatively speaking, and then it feels to me like it's sort of broken up with, some distinctive features. So my take when I looked at the 3D rendering was, wow, they've done a great job making a big building that doesn't have a massing problem. So my reaction was just a lot different than yours.
I think it might also be the way that it's fronting the track. Whereas I don't know whether tilting it slightly so that you didn't see the whole thing coming along Portola Road from the south might make a difference. Going north, obviously we just see the end. We don't really see it because of the trees. But with coming along Portola Road, I mean, I do look and I do see, and my eye does go up. So when I saw that rendering today, I was quite shocked.
Can we get that rendering back up? Can you look at that?
Yeah, Jake's getting it for you.
Because we only received that this afternoon. It's not late this morning.
See how you could focus. And it also seems to make a lot of sense along the track.
Yes.
You know,
if I could, I think these are great comments, and I think that as the design matures, we can take all of those things into account. I think that there are planting opportunities, right adjacent to the building, between the building and the track, that I do think will provide some additional modulation. The design was intended to have pieces, and those pieces would be articulated, and then there would be a gap or a rest with the lower section of building in between. And with strategic planting directly at the building, I think a lot of that, particularly over time, since the institution is going to be here for hundreds of years, those significant trees could be a real benefit. I support doing some additional planting, but not really as much additional planting at the road as alternative planting or gestational planting, because there are some trees out there that could potentially be better as a different species of trees, that provide canopy and long range viewing separation, but give you the opportunity to see under, rather than creating a fence. I mean, Dana, when you were making some of those comments about the road, the last thing that I think the town would want, I think the Priory would want, is the effect of a fence. And I think others, I wouldn't misconstrue it, but I think others could misconstrue your comments as wanting more screening. I think that we want more strategic screening, to create layering and kind of windows of view.
I don't want you to hide the building at all.
Yeah.
And I don't even think conifers. I think oaks and not live oaks. A mixture of things that are round and fat. So yeah.
Going through some really great changes, where the pines being phased out, and the native oaks that have kind of planted themselves, are actually doing a great job filling in. So, I think that your comments are great. I don't even disagree, Jane, with the massing issue, because it's been a concern of ours, all the way through. And light spill is something that it's hard to make a building, that gets naturally lit that doesn't spill some light out. So we'll look for opportunities, to help mitigate that without counting exclusively on motorized screens.
My biggest concern is the acoustic, of having the building behind all of that activity, and the sound just shooting, up into the neighborhood and Portola Green Circle. So, and I don't know how you mitigate that, but
The bigger issue is the biggest issue is probably when the doors are open. When the doors are closed, I think this is actually going to help contain, some of those activities, that might have been outdoors and would have an opportunity to move back in.
but even if they're closed and there's a football game on the field, the sound's going to hit and bounce and bounce up into the roof. But, it just, as I'm looking at it, the things that make me nervous. And in terms of the massing, I see the things that you did to break up the massing. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think I'm just hopeful for a bit more.
Can I just bring a couple things that I was thinking about? And I have not studied this rendering. We just got it today, everyone knows. But to my eye, on the right side of this drawing in the section that's stepped down, it's lower, going towards that separate building. For me, it would be nice if there was more of a change in plane. Because for me, that's what's part of what's making it look long, is that kind of lower section that's shown in the brown. It looks like it's kind of to the side of an archway. So for me, it would be nice to break that up somehow, or to maybe recess. I know it's a gym, so you can't make big recesses, but to break up that long plane that's running parallel to the track, I think would be really nice to break up. And this might be a case, we don't normally do this in town because we're into natural plantings, but this might be a case where it might make sense to do some like raised planters. And you know what I mean? See if there's a way that might help on noise, and it might help and soften the sections of the building that seem long. So I just was wondering if any of that resonates with ASCC.
Yeah, definitely the idea of having some planting over in that area. I'm not sure it even has to be raised, or if it just could be, there's a lot of native bushes around here that grow to be 10 or 15 feet high, and a couple of those in there, I think. But the basic idea of breaking it up, I think, is a good idea.
I think planting will help with acoustics also a lot.
Right.
That's critical.
Yeah, again, I think that we hadn't thought very much about the acoustics, the acoustic effect of reflectivity. That the lacrosse game or the soccer game, and the noise, the reflection that this building could potentially make. So I do think studying that in a serious way is something that we could easily educate some great acoustic engineers here locally, so that we could study what we can do with the recesses and the modulation, to make sure that those sounds aren't all going one direction, but will tend to diffuse that. The concept is to send those sounds in lots of different directions so they don't get in.
And the building on the far right, the one with the little pitched roof, I'm trying to find that on the plans.
It was the storage shed, right?
It's athletic gear, lawnmower kind of storage shed.
Can that go
Further on the other side of the field?
No, this one.
No, but there's another building on the other side of the
There's
field for mowers and
There's another, yeah.
things like that.
I don't disagree. That kind of throws
Maybe.
me off too.
Maybe we can 86 that little building.
Because that doesn't, because then you've got an extra.
We might find it. We'll find another location. Because it really is more of a tractor and athletic gear.
This is, to my mind, this is a transition in how the Priory is viewed from the street. And I really, when you're talking about it being an iconic building, I think that is really true. I mean, it is a large iconic building, and then the architecture and the design are really important, more so than a lot of the buildings on this campus where they're minimally viewed. And so then having that kind of storage, I think, does diminish from the kind of iconic nature of the building. It kind of is showing the back of the house kind of thing. You know what I mean? Instead of really putting its best foot forward.
bit shed-like.
Yeah.
Because it is a shed.
It is shed, but
Big shed,
it needs
but-
to find a new home.
So you can't make the shed on the other side of the field work for both purposes?
You get complaints
We
about
potentially
dragging
could.
mowers.
I mean, it's a bit, you know, you got it right, whack-a-mole. That was probably what I know it was, what the shed on the other side of the road was, the other side of the track was for.
Yeah.
But it has been adaptively reused for something else.
We always need storage, right? It's the one thing we, always need more of, right? Places to put things. So, but we can find a spot. There's other places we can put things.
It's a smaller building, you know, and it really is more utilitarian. So but it's nice to have the one big lawnmower.
Yeah, cool.
Kind of at the same location
Yeah,
as the one big lawn.
We'll figure it out.
How logical. We also don't have a lot of buildings of the size in town, and it becomes even more important to think about the details, the services, how it's cleaned, where the trash goes, where the backflow prevention device goes. Like all of those details really start to make a difference on a building that's this big, that's this visible. So yes, so think about all of the sort of equipment, back of house, like all the things that go with that, and make sure that's really thoughtful here.
So right now in the design, the air conditioning equipment, you know, is all, you know, up on the roof, above, you know, what we're calling the bleacher area. Yeah. And with those vents actually facing, you know, into the campus, not out to, you know, any of the residential areas. You know, because it is something that we have thought about, you know, and it's integrated actually into the rear elevation build. So could you go to the rear elevation?
Who's getting it?
So that element on the roof, you know, with the kind of the vertical T-hats, right? You know, that would be where that air conditioning equipment would be. Because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't facing out. It wasn't facing, you know, the Portola Green Circle, you know, neighborhood, and it faced up you know, towards the campus. We have, you know, I agree that all of those things need to be dealt with. From a, you know, some of the other things, you know, Laura, that you mentioned about, you know, garbage and recycling and some most of that stuff. There really is a larger campus-wide plan, you know, that has, you know, those facilities distributed in kind of small, kind of daily stuff, you know, where, you know, then the staff gathers that and moves that to larger, you know, bins up by the barn. You know, so we're not ending up with, you know, garbage bins, you know, in a lot of different.
No, I think there's been areas by the outside the performance hall as well, aren't there? In certain rooms or something with storage.
Question for Laura. If all we're doing now is having action minutes, how does the planning commission, how does the people of the town know what the ASCC said about this project? Do they have to watch the video?
Staff will do a summary of your feedback for the report for the Planning Commission and for your future consideration, but they would have to watch it back if they want to get the specific details.
And the same for the people of the town?
Yes.
They would have to only watch the.
Yes.
I
But
want to
we-
talk
we-
to the council about that because I think the Planning Commission and ASCC should have detailed minutes
Yeah, and
to inform everyone in town what's going on at a higher level.
I have that on your next agenda to talk about action minutes. Yeah.
Right, good. Right. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that the Planning Commission heard everything we talked about tonight.
Yeah.
Without having to watch it on TV. Yeah.
We wrote it down too.
And sometimes what we do with the videos is we give people the timestamp so that they can watch the exact portion of the minute of the meeting. And I think that really helps people too.
All right then. Do we have any more tips, advice, suggestions?
No, I thought this was a great discussion, though. Really,
Thank you.
Do you want to ask us anything, or
Well,
did we miss anything?
I want to make sure that you understand how much we appreciate it, and how I think this process helps contribute, to a really good design and a really good working relationship, to make things work better.
Because we're seeing it early.
Well, I mean, I can still move stuff around, and it doesn't cost any money.
Right.
So,
Gestational, baby.
well, it's part of the reason that a lot of the drawings that you're seeing are done by hand. They're faster, they're quicker, and they're frankly more informative. On what it is. We did want to do this detailed computer model because it's really the only good way that we could show what the massing impact is in a real scaled way, so that we could actually see what we're intending. Right. And it really matched what I was getting to. Things that you talked about with the trees and lighting are all things that we continue to be concerned about. Okay. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Great place for Valley Oaks.
Yes.
It's in the valley.
And they'd create that
beautiful,
right? Arcing canopy.
Get them started.
We can plant them now.
With the minor works that we saw previously, have you got a schedule for the?
Well, we would love to, get around to, how we could pursue those, more kind of in parallel, with the resolution of, the conditional use permit update. Right. Those minor works is, using your term, which I think is a great way to describe them.
Well, compared to the gym.
Yeah. Well, they're really ready to want to build it. So we, I know the planning commission talked about, potential process, but the chapel, and the existing locker room, team room, renovations are things that the priory would really like to pursue very, very quickly. And we come back to the ASCC with the real construction documents for those two projects,
right?
So that we could finish design review. But in both cases, there's some kind of floor area issues around the existing conditional use permit language. Planning commission use terms like "let's make it easy," these are no-brainers, and because they're relatively modest in their floor area requests, and that the conditional use permit still has quite a lot of floor area that hasn't been used, but it's mostly in the residential category. And at least one, I think two planning commissioners said it should be able to be traded or moved around. So those are things that we still are hoping to resolve.
I'd also like to reiterate that the idea about that road coming in off Gambetta to close off that loop, because I know that the families live up there and there's children and everything, I think is a great idea.
I like the idea of coming in lower.
It's gotta be low. I don't want to bisect that meadow. I plant poppies out there.
Or at least let Commissioner Breen know, and then she'll dig up anything that she wants to say before you. Good things up too.
Through the chair, if I could just speak to the process a little bit.
Right.
Staff has been working on the best possible process. So we've gotten a legal opinion back, and we're kind of putting all the pieces together now. So we're very close to being able to have kind of an overall process for the different pieces that they're proposing. So that will be forthcoming shortly. We're very close to having that. So we have been populating, we're getting a website for kind of all of the CUP master plan overall going so that the public can look at it. And we'll put out like kind of a simple like newsletter article for our Thursday newsletters, just to let the public know what the overall process is going to be. So we'll let the ASCC and the Planning Commission know once we have that determined. And there's a good chance you'll see a couple of these projects back before you pretty quickly here.
Sounds as though the staff have been working very hard.
Thank you, Jane. We have.
Setting everything up so that we don't have any questions from the public.
We're trying to make it, yeah.
Well,
Well, we're trying to create a process that, you know, abides by the town ethos, but doesn't take longer than it needs to for the parts of the project that are more simple.
I shouldn't have said questions. I should have said complaints.
Complaints inform us also. Dissent is a good thing.
Right. All right then. So do we have anything else to?
Oh, right, we do. We have to go through stuff. I thought
I
we were
know
done.
we do, but we also need to close this.
Yeah, I think we can close this item.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I really
Yeah, it
appreciate
was great, Carter.
it. Thanks for coming
Thank
to
you.
the site. It makes things so much easier.
Yeah. Anytime, you're always welcome.
All right then. In that case, we're closing the item and moving on to commission, staff, committee reports and recommendations. Do we have any commission reports?
No, I haven't done anything since last week. Got a couple of things coming up.
I have nothing. Anyway.
Sorry, we're not done yet.
No. So do you have any?
I don't.
I
No comment.
also have no commission report. So we'll move over to Laura and her staff report, because Laura's bound to them.
Well, Dana stole my thunder. I was going to tell you that we were putting the minutes on the next agenda for discussion.
I'm excited about that. Because I heard the planning commission, you know, said that they wanted minutes.
Yes.
And I said, I think that the council will be better informed with commission minutes.
Yeah.
I don't
So
think every committee, just commission.
yeah. So I will, it'll be officially on the agenda so that you can make I guess we would call it a recommendation or a request. So we can have a little discussion about that, but we want it to be a formal agenda item.
Was the reduction in minutes a financial consideration?
It does cost some money to produce the minutes. We have a person that does either transcriptions or summary minutes, and it costs a few $100s per meeting to have those minutes done. And so it's just a balancing thing. It's not cost prohibitive, but it is a line item in my department budget.
Yeah, I just wondered with the budget, the finances being a little
This
bit
is important.
You know,
really
my opinion is that this line item is small enough that it doesn't have any meaningful impact on the budget.
right. Okay. And then the other announcement was about the website for the Priory and the CUP. So we stole your thunder on that one.
Yeah,
as well.
so we're going back on, you know, some of these projects that are more of townwide significance. There's going to be project pages so people can go look at renderings and plans and keep up with the upcoming meetings. So that information will be on the website. We have we are closing out 228 Westridge. So we are getting to the completion of that project.
What is that? Is that a zoning?
Yes. So we are getting close to wrapping that up. So ASCC members have been involved in different parts of that. And Al is going to help us with some of the things related to the final inspection. So we're working on that right now. Yeah. Since Al's been involved in every step of the project, and not all ASCC commissioners have been involved in every step of it. So we have recruited Al, and he has said yes to us to come help us get that finalized out. So we appreciate that very much. On these larger projects that go on a long time, it's nice for us staff to have ASCC members involved in these final steps.
Like 50 days.
It's definitely more than 5 because I've been here 5 years now.
Well, because it was one of the first ones.
So that's finally wrapping up. So that's big news for everyone. We gave you the report on the fire station. That's wrapping up. So that's good for everyone to get that done. Yes, I have. Okay. Yes. So those are big milestones of things we've been working on for a long time. So those are the main things that I wanted to tell you. Happy to take any questions. We've got routine projects coming up for you, but nothing that's really out of the ordinary.
Any staff changes?
No staff changes. Yeah, so you'll continue to see Jake, Jamie, and Dylan are the main planners processing projects that are come before you. You'll see Adrian more often. You might start to see Adrian and I switching back and forth. Or for example, like I'll be in the room and she'll be on Zoom, or she'll be in the room and I'll be on Zoom as she gets a feel for how ASCC works. So you'll see her more often. But no other staff changes.
That would be the next thing. What happened?
Okay, yes. On the 24th, we have tentative at this time. So we have to, you know what I mean, get all this stuff confirmed. We have a Cal Water project for some new water facility. And then we have 127 Pinion. I can never say that quite right. Pinion. Which includes a fairly intensive site visit for people that are interested. New trails and some grading around the property that is and subject to site development permit. So what we were thinking is we would have a big joint site visit and invite 2 members of the Conservation Committee to come out with ASCC members that are interested and up for a little bit more of a hike.
Have you seen it yet?
I don't know off the top of my head. So this is one where they have already done some of the work, and they didn't realize that they needed a permit, and now we're coming back through and kind of figuring out what to do. So this will be a little bit unusual process. So very collaborative kind of process between staff, ASCC, and Conservation Committee about what's the best way to handle this. Does it give people concern? Should we proceed? How exactly do we want to regulate this kind of situation? So it's a little bit of an unusual one.
Okay, thank you. So that closes the staff report.
Yes.
In that case, I think we open up public comment.
Yeah, public comment on commissioner staff reports. And Christy's hand has been up for a little while, but we'll just go ahead and let her go then. Here's Christy.
Thank you, Christy.
Hello. Thank you. I was just came in at the end, but I always remember that the Priory CUP original one had in it to make sure that since the Priory is the center of town almost, that we make it a highly public process for education. So I know Carter's been presenting a number of things, and I feel like we need to do a better job of rolling it out to the town, since that was in the original CUP. And I think the people of the town still want to be informed. And I know Carrie puts out her communication every Thursday. So that's a good place to put it and have some depth to it as to what's happening. I just think that's part of the process. And then the second, I guess I always have questions of, has there been any SB9 lots presented to you? In the past, you said 1, and I'm just wondering if it's gone above 1. And if there's been any updates with any of the housing element sites or any progress on any of those sites.
Right, thank you, Christy. I'm not sure, I think Laura spoke earlier about the CUP and the Woodside Priory going onto the newsletter and a website in the near future, but I'm not sure about the SB9 units or any housing elements.
There hasn't been any change related to SB9 units in the last 2 weeks.
All right, Christy?
I'm sorry, I already turned her mic off.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, do we have any other public comments?
There are no other hands up.
Right. In that case, I'll close public comment and move on to the approval of the minutes. I look at them. Yeah. I move to approve. Abridged. All those in favour?
Motion carries 3-0.
All right. Public comment on the minutes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Do we have,
yeah, if anyone, there are no members of the public in the schoolhouse. If anyone on Zoom wanted to make comments on the minutes, please raise your hand. There are no hands up.
All right. In that case, I'll close public comment for the minutes, and I think we can adjourn. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.